Next conversation, everybody, is going to try to answer the question how to feed the world. So please join me also for this conversation. Good afternoon. I haven't had a chance to speak to you beforehand, so nice to see you all. So as I said, in this conversation, we're going to be looking at some of the challenges in terms of how to feed the planet. And just to give you an idea, some estimates suggest that by 2050, we will have 10 billion people on this planet. And of course, as we see more and more extreme weather events, that is also posing even further challenges in securing food for everybody. So I'm very pleased to introduce my next panelists. I have with me Bill Anderson, CEO of Bayer. Good afternoon. Chris Abbott, CEO of Pivot Bio, and Kees Aarts, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, CEO and founder of Protix. So thank you all for joining me here today. First and foremost, I would just like to understand what's the state of play. As you look at the challenges of feeding the global population, I would like to start with you. Just outline for us, what are you seeing at this stage?
Yeah, well, it's an amazingly complex thing to put food on the table for 8 billion people. And, you know, in the years ahead, we believe we're going to need to make that number 10 billion, as you mentioned, but also to do that probably with less arable land than we have today, significantly less water, because we're losing water in a lot of our key agricultural areas, and hopefully also we need to do that with less chemicals. And so beyond that, it needs to be much more sustainable in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, in terms of pollution, and that's no small feat.
Definitely.
Okay? So I think if you put that all together, that would be very daunting. The good news is, thanks to companies like ours, companies like the ones represented here today, we have some technology to bring to bear on that, and we're quite confident we can do it, but it's a race.
Definitely a race. I would like to look at that, the opportunities, the technology, because we're also trying to come up with solutions, of course, not just to this problem, but to many. But looking at some of the potential solutions, what do you think are the answers for this huge problem in trying to feed the world population? Where should we focus our attention?
It's a great question. I would build on what Bill said, which is also managing all of those dynamics in a more volatile climate and environment. And so when we think about solutions, and Bill mentioned reducing the amount of synthetic chemistry, there are a number of biologic tools, and here at Davos, more digital efforts around AI in really managing the system differently. And our business is very biological in the fertilizer space, but when you look at crop protection and synthetic chemistry, when you look at soil health, when you look at managing against the variability and volatility of climate, those things all have to come together. And no one of them is going to solve that challenge on their own, nor can they solve it in a vacuum. So for us, it's all about being here with our partners and figuring out how do we bring these solutions at scale. But the problems exist. And the thing that's most exciting is the solutions exist. The solutions are here and the solutions are ready to scale. Now it's about bringing them all together.
So what is the one solution that we should be focusing our attention to? Because we can't pay attention and invest in all of the potential projects here. What is the one that we should be focusing on?
Yeah,
you should talk about yours.
I'm biased. The one that we're focused on is fertilizer. Fertilizer, half the world would be dead if it weren't for fertilizer. On the other hand, it contributes to nitrous oxide, waste runoff in the United States, huge problem in our water systems. And Bill mentioned we have less water and we have less good water that we need. So for us, our solution produces that biologically. Goes on as a seed coating. Many of our partners can apply our product. It's invisible, and then that plant essentially self-fertilizes. It's weatherproof, and it's more cost-efficient for a grower, so they can save money and improve their performance. So for us, it all starts with fertilizer.
I would like to get to you on this one, Kees, because obviously there's also a lot of attention on insects and whether that actually will become our main source of protein going forward. How realistic is that, and what do you say to people that are maybe a little bit reluctant when it comes to this idea?
So our solution is really to expand the protein plate, and we take a very big problem, and that's the global food waste problem. There's a lot of protein tucked away. There's more than 1 billion tons of food waste. And in a controlled environment, we're able to upcycle that by the use of a natural solution called insects. And that's what they do in nature as well. And insects play a very essential role in providing nutrition to nearly all animals. And through our technology, we can extract these proteins and oils from food waste. And to give you 2 examples, so our insect protein is currently already 85% lower in carbon footprint versus soy concentrate. And our insect oils have a 92% lower water footprint versus palm oil. And that allows us to really bring these building blocks to help our customers produce greener and better. So it's not only a very natural, healthy solution for nearly all animals, but imagine being able to feed your pets or feed fish or poultry with these natural ingredients with 80 to 90% lower footprint. So it's an untapped resource that we can basically produce anywhere in the world in a very controlled environment. We've got the entire technology platform developed. It's now proven at scale and even profitable. So that's such a new moment in time so that we can jointly with other solutions as well really move that food system into a new era.
I'm just wondering whether the market is perhaps getting a little bit too saturated, because there's a lot of ideas and a lot of niche new products for us consumers, like lab-grown meats. How fierce is the competition in this space at this stage?
So I hope the market will never be saturated with ideas, to be honest. We need to keep pioneering together, but at the same time, I would say it is saturated with companies that are not committed to really bring operations, research, and technology together. And to persevere throughout years of trial and error, because the food system is a massive machine globally. There are like billions of people working, thousands of actors, and to think you can just step in and have some exponential 2-year plan and outcompete, it's a wrong and a flawed idea. So it's hopefully not saturated with ideas. I would love to see a lot more companies really persevere and just punch through that years of pioneering and get it to work, to a scale and a profitability, so we can play with companies like Bayer. So that's why we're also here, really looking for the partners that can help us also build the new factories in other areas of the world.
Bill, I see you nodding a lot. Share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, well, so Bayer is the world-leading investor in R&D in agriculture, and we just see so many opportunities to make a difference, both in terms of feeding the world and doing it in a more sustainable way. And maybe just to share a couple others, because I think what these guys are doing is brilliant and key parts of the solution. I mean, we have, for example, cover crops that we're working on. What's a cover crop? It's something that's planted between the time you plant other crops, all right? Why is that important? It's important because you can use the same land. You don't have to clear more land. Clearing land that's a no-go now, right? We need forests to absorb carbon. We can't be clearing land. But if you have a cover crop that you can plant that grows an oil seed, and that oil seed can be converted into renewable aviation fuel, this is the kind of thing that can answer some of the most important questions of, like, how do we continue to fly planes without, contributing to global warming? Another example, and people are going to see it across America in the coming years. It's rolling out this year. Short stature corn. Corn is typically 10 feet tall when it's at full maturity. That's a problem because when you have these extreme weather events that are more and more frequent, farmers can lose 30, 50, 70% of their crop when the corn plants get blown over. We've now engineered corn plants that grow 6 feet tall. They make the same corn, but they don't grow so tall, they don't blow over. It seems like a simple thing. That's like a 15-year project, and it makes a huge difference. And this is also part of a no-till farming solution that allows us to put carbon in the ground, which improves the farmer's soil, but then the farmers can actually earn credit for carbon farming. So these are just a couple of the examples, and there's many more. So I really think it's a golden age, a new golden age for agriculture and ag technology, and again, it's a race to get it done.
Absolutely. I would like to get your thoughts, though, on the price of fertilizers, because I mean, we were just having a conversation on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and that also has a link on how much we have been paying for food. I would like to get your thoughts on the outlook for the price of fertilizers going forward, of course, and how that could impact how much we're also paying for on our food.
Yeah, well, let me just make a comment that the price of fertilizer, there's the price, and then there's the externalities associated with it.
Of course.
Because most fertilizer is produced with a lot of energy and a lot of fossil fuel burning. And so, you know, what you're doing to basically make plants make their own fertilizer, that's key, both from a pollution standpoint in the ground and the groundwater, but also, importantly, from an energy standpoint. So I think right now, the price of fertilizer, it pretty much travels with the price of energy in different parts of the world where it's produced. And you probably don't need me to forecast the price of energy, but I would emphasize that's only part of the cost, because there's a cost of the carbon.
Yes.
And so the things that we can do to convert that, it's really important.
But would you just say, just to finish this topic, that we're entering a reality of just more unpredictable prices of food?
I think that's true. When you have more unpredictable weather, you're going to have really bigger swings in the price of food and droughts. If you saw the temperature curves that were published from the EU Copernicus group a couple weeks ago, I mean, when you see this line that's just shooting above all the historical records, you got to believe that has a big effect on farmers and on crops, and ultimately that's on food and food price.
Absolutely. Chris, do you think that the world is actually ready to pay more for food?
I do. Now, it's region specific. So in the United States where I live, we're fortunate that we frankly can afford more expensive food. We're unfortunate that we have to, because we spend more on the healthcare remedies for the results of the bad food that we purchase in the US, irrespective of social class, very ironically, from the lower classes all the way to the upper class. Folks have a massive nutrition and health problem. And that extends in other parts of the world. We're fortunate in many Western and developed countries that we should be paying more for food, but it's a reallocation away from the healthcare outcomes that we shouldn't be paying for, that we can be healthier, or, to Bill's point, the environmental or societal impact of some of those food decisions. And so reallocating that to technology and to outcomes is certainly something that we all should be focused on. And I would just add a point to what Bill said earlier. Technology is an amazing price deflationary tool. And we see that in our business with fertilizer. We've dislocated from natural gas. Natural gas pricing does not matter to us. We use 1,000 times less water, 1/1000th. So if we can dislocate from those limiting factors, we can actually bring costs down, which has benefit for growers, it has benefit for the environment, certainly has benefits for consumers downstream.
The problem with this debate to some extent is that while we're trying to feed the world and we're discussing hunger prospects and so on, the other side of this argument is that some populations have way too much food and they're wasting a lot of food too. To what extent, Kees, the problem here is actually rebalancing some of these resources?
So I think on food cost, by the way, I think something can cost a lot and something can cost us dearly, right? So the way we are doing it, it will cost us dearly. Right? We're overexploiting, we're emptying the ocean, so and that doesn't have a bright future. So these new technologies, the more disconnected technologies to produce foods are important to bring it all back in balance with nature. On your question, so to repeat your question was...
It's just that it seems we have there's no balance. We have too much food in one place and not enough food in other places. How does this, how do we fix this?
It's, I think, one of the many examples that there are some stuff a lot in some areas and some stuff a lot less. I think it's just unevenly balanced. Technologies aren't in the places where they can alleviate poverty, reduce prices. Some of the import-export balances are flawed. It's very, like in our case, for instance, our technology works. We know there are places where technology could have massive social benefits as well. We can't export it there. There's no business model. So there's a lot of unfairness in the way technologies and products and foods are distributed. Our solution today is to really lower the footprint and to reduce the pressure on land, water, and energy. But by extension, I think that would also help us rebalance the total food system.
I feel like we don't have enough time to discuss all of this. I just see the clock there, but I would like to get a final thought from all of you in terms of government support, because a year ago here in Davos, the big topic was how the US Inflation Reduction Act was revolutionary. I was just wondering, are we about to see any sort of concrete action from governments to ensure that we can feed the world going forward?
I don't know. I'm not holding my breath for that. The amount of R&D that goes into agriculture is amazingly small, given how important food is. You know, it's probably the most taken for granted resource on Earth, except, of course, amongst those people who don't have enough food.
Yeah.
But I think we have the ability, you know, again, there's a lot of technology. Now it's really about adoption of technology. And I'm not sure we need tons of government subsidies, but we need clear regulatory pathways. And I think we also need to have a close partnership between agriculture technology companies and the environmentalists. Because oftentimes, historically, those groups have been, you know, kind of opposing each other. And we need to find a way to have a better dialogue, because we simply can't feed the 8 billion people, much less the 10 billion people, going back to historical farming methods. That's a nice ideal, but it's not achievable. And so making progress on these things is vital, both for feeding people and making sure we have food, but also for the environment.
Chris, you seem to be agreeing with what Bill is saying.
Yeah. I also am not holding my breath. I mean, we need more government support, but, you know, I think about it maybe in a similar way to you, Bill. It's all about capital allocation. If we look at the amount of resources and energy and focus in the energy market versus ag, it is different planets. If you look at the societal benefit, if you look at the sustainable benefit, it's actually more tilted towards needing to invest in ag and food and the value chain. And so we need to rebalance and reallocate our resources, which includes our capital, to do that. The thing that I would just emphasize, I can't say it enough, is modernization of our regulatory frameworks. The technologies exist to replace chemistry with better biological solutions, to reduce fertilizer by 20 to 50% across the board. It's there. We don't have to invent the rocket science. We've got to get it deployed. And the partners are all willing to work together. We've got to get the regulatory and federal agencies to help foster that partnership. And there's a way to do it, and I think we're at that tipping point to what Bill said earlier. So it's hopefully we can all work together, but I'm not, you know, holding my breath that the government is going to be the unlock of that.
But Kees, just to finish this conversation, do you think that there is a lack of awareness from governments that this is something that they also need to pay attention to, particularly as we see extreme weather events just propping up?
I don't think it's lack of awareness. It's not an easy roadmap. So basically, whether it's plants or animals or insects, there are three major roadmaps that have something to do with biology, something to do with nutrition, whether it's soil or feeds, and something to do with the technology to produce and process. And these are long roadmaps. And I fully agree with the two colleagues, is that the scientific support to invest in these roadmaps together with institutions and businesses is just way too small compared to other industries. But if a lot more investments would be done in the research and scientific roadmaps of all three at the same time, they will converge in a food system that will be able to produce much more nutrition with a far less and smaller footprint. We always call it the pathway to low footprint, no footprint proteins. And it is possible. It is possible, but they extend 4, 5, 10, 15 years. And that, I think, is the answer to your question. It's not so much awareness. It is which parties and which policymakers can oversee such timelines. But together, if we keep investing in the science behind biology, nutrition, and the technologies to produce and process, I have no doubt the food system will be able to produce far more at a far better footprint.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciated it. Thank you so much. And good luck with all of the technology. And I hope that indeed you can all help us feeding the world if indeed we actually reach the 10 billion people or just the 8 that we have right now. So join me in applauding Bill Anderson, CEO of Bayer, Chris Abbott, CEO of Pivot Bio, and Kees Aarts, CEO and founder of Protix. Thank you all for your time.
Thank
you.